Hello everyone, Zelleranth here, and yesterday it was announced that Saffiyah is going to end up being the next unit on the debut banner, as it was predicted by many people. So that is good that we are finally getting that a top tier DPS that I know a majority of people are actually looking forward to. So we're going to go ahead and just take a quick look at her skills and her core kit. I've already done a full in-depth look at all of her skills, so I will link the full video in my description if anyone wants to go through every skill and kind of my thoughts on those. But we'll just kind of take a quick glance on the core parts of her kit and then kind of think about what I would consider her on the pull priority list for people currently. So the big thing with her kit is that, and her trait is that she has the standard you see with a lot of the Hangman units where she puts that mark on units. As she goes up in stars, she goes from putting it on 1 unit to 2 units, and then she does increased damage to the units that have it. But the big thing that comes with her trait is that she has a built-in life drain. It's 50% at 3 stars. If you get her all the way to, I think, at 4 stars, it'll get upgraded to 75%. Saffiyah is definitely a unit that she has all of her core capabilities at 3 stars, so if you at least get her to 3 stars, she's going to work great. But she does really ramp up at 5 stars, and since she's such a good DPS, she is one that you will definitely want to push to 5 stars at some point. But there is no immediate rush to have to do it, like some units. Alright, so now when we take a look at her skills, there's 3 main skills that I would consider her big, what really make her stand out for a lot of other units on the DPS side of things. The first one will be the tactical adjustment. So this one is an instant, so she can do this at any time. And you can select any target, so that's ally or enemy, and you can change your profession, so change your class effectively to the target's profession, and then you gain the disguise. And so basically what this does is she is a seeker unit, but say you're coming up against a defender unit. If there's a breaker unit available within range, she can go ahead and select that breaker unit and switch her class to the breaker unit, so that way she gets the advantage against the defender rather than being weak to the defender. So that's really, really big on basically making her able to take on any enemy type, even defenders, because she can just immediately switch to whatever the weakness is of that enemy, as long as there's a target available to switch to, which you can build your teams around that. So you need somebody that can have a specific class, then you just have that team member on your team and she can switch to it. The next big one that can do insane damage, especially on specific maps that it'll be good for, is the Shadowless Blade. And this is one where she gives herself dodge, and then when she is on dodge and as an enemy attacks her, and when she successfully dodges, she'll deal 85% of her physical attack to all enemies within a 3x4 area in a target direction that the enemy is attacking from, and inflict vulnerability 2 on them. Vulnerability 2 for 2 turns, and she'll restore 2 energy to herself. This one can be quite insane. If you look at my previous video where I show this in action, she kills like 10 wolves back to back as they all try and attack her. And effectively what you're doing is she's going to be not susceptible to any attacks except AoE. And so when an enemy attacks, she's basically attacking them back, plus anybody close to them. So if you put her in a large group of enemies, especially melees, you can switch with this instant to like a majority of their weaknesses, and then as they attack her, she's going to dodge it and then attack back, and she can do this multiple times. She stays in this state, so she just keeps doing this. So if there's 4 enemies and all 4 of them come up to attack her, she's going to react and attack back every single one of them, and she's putting vulnerability 2 on all these enemies. So even if she's not killing them, she's getting them in a good position to be killed on the next turn. And then, so when you take a look at the last skill that I would say is kind of unique to her, will be her support summon. So she summons a Hangman agent, and it goes behind the unit that she selects. It inherits 85% of her attributes, inflicts the Hangman's mark. So this is a way that you can target an enemy and put the mark on them specifically, rather than having to take the risk of her trait, selecting the random 2. And then it puts physical defense down on them, magic defense down 2 on them, and it does that for 2 turns. So when we take a look at her Hangman unit, we have a couple things within his kit. So the first thing is he just does a normal attack 50% twice to an enemy. Then you have the Get Out prompt skill, which is basically where you can swap the Hangman unit with any of your other friendly units. So this would be really good for positioning, say, someone else behind an enemy, since he spawns up behind them. And then you have his last thing, which is where he lasts 2 turns, much like a Kanbei's assassins last a turn and then disappear. After 2 turns, he will disappear, but he drops a bomb that basically does 40% damage with all the enemies around him, and then puts 2 attribute debuffs on them, and it's 2 random ones. So just another way to put more debuffs on enemies. And that's kind of what I would consider the core of her kit. Big thing that makes her the big things that make her extremely useful and valuable to pretty much any team. Basically, she can self-sustain with her lifesteal from her trait. She can switch to the class of the enemies, or class that is the weakness of the enemies, so she can counter anything. She has the dodge, so she can take the hits, and when she does that dodge, she attacks back and applies a debuff. And then you also have the summon that also can help with positioning and all that. So an outright amazing unit, and like I said in the beginning, I will put in the description my more in-depth look at her kit, if anyone wants to kind of see everything else on her skills, because everything else has its uses. It'll just depend on the scenario and the situation. And so when it comes to her pull priority, I put her at the top of the list in terms of pull priority. There's only one unit that I would consider higher than her, and that would be Terror. And I know that there was the idea that Terror could potentially come after Saffiyah from another video that someone had mentioned that I kind of reacted to. Now, I highly doubt that's actually going to happen. And if that were to happen, that is going to be an extremely hard decision for free-to-plays at that point. Now, I don't think you can go wrong either way. I put Terror at a higher priority than Sophia, but I know a lot of people just really like Sophia, and she is good enough that I would say you can just pull on her without worry, regardless of what's coming after her. Because I put Saffiyah above August, I put Sophia above Homa, and pretty much every other unit that's coming up. She is an amazing DPS, and she does not really lose value at all. She is still extremely useful in a tier 0 on the CN side of things. But overall, to me, I think if you're free to play, when we get to Sophia's banner, you are free to throw every single one of your pulls on her. And I think it's a good choice. I don't think that's a bad decision at all to throw everything you have at her to try and get her, regardless if you have the guarantee or not. I wouldn't even be thinking about future units when it comes to pulling for her, because she's that good. But yeah, that's just a quick look at Saffiyah and then my thoughts on the pulls. If you liked this video, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, that's been quite a big help. And thanks for watching.